So we fresh back, man. 7. And it's a continuation of the lesson that we actually began in Psalm 65. Psalm 65 talked about the importance of praise. And then Psalm 66, which we dealt with last week, told us how to praise. And as you recall, it laid it out in such a way that it told us that the first thing you need to do is shout in your praise, right? Then it says that you need to sing your praise. And we spent, as you can imagine, with choir members in the group, we spent a little time talking about the joy and the satisfaction that comes from ministering as part of the choir, singing praises unto God. And we also pointed out the fact that if there are folks in the congregation that can't sing,
Okay, I want to know that one.
yeah, and you need to, which is the next item, you need to say your praise. And in that case, all you need to do is say amen.
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 I don't know whether you were here first service on Sunday,
Uh-huh.
but that was a really,
Yeah,
really
Alan
good.
preached.
Yes, Alan preached and the elderly lady.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was
Sang.
very touching. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes, indeed. And she gave him praise.
She did. She
Yeah,
really
she
did.
sang every note in that song.
She did. She
It was
did.
wonderful.
Just as I am.
Yeah. And then the last thing that we learned from last week about how to praise is that we see our praise. It need to be others, particularly those who
Brother Mo. All right.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, especially those who are uninitiated, they need to see our praise. So how do you praise? You shout, you sing, you say, and you see.
See.
And that kind of steps us into what we're going to look at today, because Psalm 67 tells us that it's important for us to expand our praise to a wide audience. And in fact, it says in the opening part of it that wide audience is to nations. In other words, this is a missionary psalm. It's a missionary psalm, and scholars point out that it's a derivative of what Aaron's benediction was. And you find that in Numbers 6, verses 24 through 26. And you'll see there that God gave the same blessing to Aaron through Moses that we're going to be focusing on in our study today. One writer shared a story to demonstrate the value and importance of missionary kind of praising by recounting what occurred in Gloucester, England. In Gloucester, England, there's a graveyard, and in the corner of it is a very small memorial, headstone, and inscribed on that headstone is the following: December 21st, 1869. Here lies Titman's missionary hen. Her contributions, £4.10. Although she is dead, the work goes on, as she left 7 daughters and a son to carry on the work that she begun. And what that story is about is a guy in the community who's very poor. But he wanted to give something to the missionary group that was founded in his city. And he had no money. But what he did have were several hens. And he designated one of those hens as a hen that would produce eggs and he would sell and give the money to the missionary. And throughout the hen's life, it wasn't much. She gave the equivalent of $5.44. That's measured against that 4 pounds and 10 pence. But bigger than that, the 7 daughters and son generated significant dollars for the missionary because of their production. And it continued on to where this man became one of the biggest donors for that missionary. Missionary work. How important it is to take and demonstrate our ability to praise the Lord and magnify it across the nations. And that's what Psalm 67 is suggesting that we need to be focused on as part of our growing and developing into praising God. And then we got one more psalm that's going to add to it before we close it out. That's Psalm 68, which we'll get to next time. In our study on page 215, the first item up for us to focus on is Israel blesses the nation. And it's suggested there, one writer says that Israel is blessing the nation because the world needs light. Somebody read verses 1 and 2, which is also the Aaronic benediction.
May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine upon us. Let your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among us, among all nations.
Great. Now, you guys have heard that before.
Yes,
Many times.
Many times.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about the fact that the world needs light. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine upon us. That's the prayer. That's the beginning of it. And we must remember that as part of this missionary focus, that we're not part of an operation where the Church of God has a mission. We're part of a family where we're serving the God of mission, who has the church. You get that? We're not serving a church that has a mission. We're serving the God that has a mission, and the church.
Yeah.
And as part of that whole missionary statement is telling us to do what? To get up and go. Right? I mean, you listen to our missionary work, and every time you hear them talk, it's about going. Because the problems of the world and the darkness that's out there is not going to come to us. You know, darkness is trying its best to stay away from light. We're called to provide salt and light. This is a missionary call. If you look at verse 2, says all nations. Don't just keep it to yourself. All nations. Verse 4 says the nations. Same thing. And verse 7 says, well, in case you missed it, take it to the ends of the earth.
So if we look at that,
Okay.
just the verses that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
if we summarize it, we literally are looking at the Great Commission.
Yeah, sure you could. That's right. That's right.
Or it's one reason.
Yeah, which is missionary based, isn't it? Yeah, don't sit at home and just keep it in your neighborhood or in your house or just between you and your mate. And Mike is constantly putting forth the importance of missionary work. It's not a vacation. It's an opportunity to demonstrate and to let people see the effect of our praising because of the of a few other things which we're gonna get into that they'll be able to see. Why do we need to go? Why do we need to go?
Because God has blessed us, and therefore we should share that blessing with others.
Mhm.
Did not command us to go, demand us to go.
Yeah,
And I come in,
being obedient.
I tried to demand it too, but it was a command.
Yeah. Because God's grace is something that others need to see, right? I mean, he's being gracious to us. That's not and we talked about it last week, that's not a thing that you keep to yourself.
You know, I guess that goes along with the appreciation of God's blessing
Mhm.
that God gives us abundantly. And we have two choices. Number one, we take care of that God has given us, but it doesn't mean that we take it and hold it to ourselves if we are able to share it with others in need.
Mhm. That's right. That's right. And then also, if you look at God's grace, is it God's grace if it's something that you got involved in and helped to make happen?
No. God doesn't need us for His grace. That's something that we don't truly deserve, but He gives it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
I know it's not the reason that you become a missionary or go on mission trips, but for me, there was another side effect that I did not predict. It's a great growth experience
Mm.
and great, you know, it's a great fraternal experience also,
Okay.
in the sense that people
Mm.
tend to feed off each other when you're in church, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But you get stuck out
Yeah.
on a mission trip, you'll get to know your partners better than you ever knew,
Yeah.
and they will get to know you, and you will have to rely on each other
Yeah.
to a great extent because of language capability, or he or she will say the right thing when you don't know what to say,
Mhm.
and on and on. So all I'm saying, my little bit of experience teaches me there's value to the missionaries
Hmm.
as well as the ones that you're
That's good.
missioning to.
Yes.
There's value to you.
That's
I sat in a Sunday Bible study next to the missionary that we used to sponsor,
Mhm.
gentlemen,
Oh, yeah, from the Caribbean?
from the Caribbean.
Yeah, yeah.
And his wife was back for a
Street.
short, for a short visit.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is a
Hmm.
solid Christian man,
Mhm.
I think, because of his missionary work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he just kind of radiates a certain solidarity, and maybe he's getting ready to pick up and go back,
Mm-hmm.
even though he doesn't have the sponsorship, which
Hmm.
unfortunately has been withdrawn from him. So I just
Yeah.
found that value came along with everything else.
Yeah.
and what Jim is saying, we can take that in life. We think that we're all that bag of chips, but truly, if we stop and we think about it, we can learn from those that we think that we are giving so
That's
much
right, yeah.
Mhm.
assistance to. So I can see.
Like you mentioned Herb Coppage.
Yes.
Herb Coppage is absolutely fearless.
Mike.
Mike Coppage is absolutely fearless. You know, I've been to a lot of countries in the world on a military mission where you solidly know what you're gonna do, and you fake it and appear to be fearless.
Yeah.
But when guy like Mike Coppage, you even want to like get behind him, let him lead the way, because he's a prayer warrior. You see, if I'm praying about it, there will no hurt, harm, or danger will befall us.
Mhm.
Mike, I'm not absolutely sure about all that. But I'm just saying, you see a lot in people that show
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the other point you made about the personal growth you get out of it is very true, because you're able particularly on the mission field, to see acts of God that you're probably not gonna see in the safety of Fairfax County. You know, because the approach and the service, as an example, you know, there are some churches in Africa, they hold 8-hour services. And there's not a lull in the service. They are praising God the full time. And miracles that, you know, that we read about in Scripture are still happening over there. And in the missionary field, you can only see that as causing you to grow and to be even more confident. It's sort of like being a surgeon, right? You got to practice to be as good as you, as others want you to be. This is part of our practice, isn't it? Going to an otherwise dark world and providing the light of how gracious God has been to us. There's something real valuable in that for them, but then to see the impact and the result on their lives as we are ministering to them is the kind of growth you're talking about for the missionary. It's a two-way street, isn't it?
You know, here, as I understand, because I wasn't here,
Mm-hmm.
oh my Lord, it's the people that talk about how they have diseases, the terminal diseases, but they will share that with the public, like Larry,
Mm-hmm.
because most of us keep our stuff to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But he was out there literally showing how much faith he had in God. And that has to rub off on somebody
Yeah, indeed.
for them to see that his trust in God was what it was all about.
Mhm.
Even though he went home,
Mhm.
he still had his faith in God.
Yeah, indeed. Because he was charging for the finish line.
Yeah.
Victory. And Vic talk about blessed assurance. That's blessed assurance. We got the victory. We just got to stay in the race and keep running. I saw an example of grace born out as I was reading. The minister was writing about Psalm 67, and he used the example, the illustration of Dennis the Menace. And in this illustration, he pointed out this cartoon where Dennis the Menace and his buddy was playing outside of the lady, Miss Wilson's house. And where they should have been irritating her, she baked cookies for them and brought it out and gave it to them. And the little boy that was with Dennis says, well, what did we do? I don't remember doing anything. And Dennis told him, said, well, you know, it's not so much what we did, but Miss Wilson gives us cookies not because we're nice, but because she's nice.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't say that about Mr. Wilson.
Could say it about what?
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson. But that's how God's treating us, isn't it?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, it ain't because of something we did. And you know, even in our prayers, we spend a great deal of time begging for stuff, right? And when it shows up, it's not because we did all the begging for it, because he was gracious enough to bless us, right? When we say offer God's blessings on somebody else, what are we really doing? I mean, what is that really doing?
Give them encouragement.
Yeah.
Give encouragement, okay? Any other thought?
Can you repeat that again?
When we say blessings, God's blessings on somebody else, pray for it, or just kind of say it, you know, God bless you.
Yeah.
Intercession.
What are we really doing?
Well, number one, from my perspective, is that we are asking God, we're literally asking God, because there's no powers that we have, but we're asking God through that statement to continue to bless that person. at the same time, we're giving that person the confidence to believe in God because they can see God in us. And I'll stop right there.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. Well, I mean, that's good. I mean, it's sort of a mini prayer.
Many prayers,
What do you
many
say?
prayers.
So it's almost like asking God to do for you what He's done for me.
Yeah, because you're speaking from experience, aren't
Right.
you?
But you can also recognize the need
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be addressed, illness or injury.
Yeah.
And God, please bless this person, bring them through.
And is that introducing light?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've had this experience, and perhaps others have had this experience. A questionable believer wants you to pray for them. They're going through issues.
Okay.
And you pray for them, you keep them in prayer, you send them Bible verses, blah, 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 blah. The issue is ended in a good nature, and they thank you for praying for them and so forth. And you never hear from them again. I mean, it got like they dropped you like a hot ball. But, which is almost like you have a feeling, Satan come by and Satan say you've been used. But it's all right that you've been used. Perhaps somewhere, you may never know this, but perhaps somewhere they realize that there is a God, a powerful God that can do all things. But you do got that feeling being used.
Yeah, I mean, and it sort of speaks to the importance of remembering that one plants.
Yeah.
You know, if my job is to just plant seed, then
God does.
I'm gonna plant seed, move on, look for another opportunity to plant. Somebody else is gonna come along and water it. Right? And God will provide the increase. So, what is the guy's name? Alan brought up a lot of R&B singers in his sermon this past week. Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye, yeah.
I'm gonna bring in one, Teddy Pendergrass.
Come on.
He said, let it
Yes,
go.
sir.
Right? He said, let it go.
Let it
Let
go.
it go,
Once you plant the seed, let it go.
let it go.
Otherwise, it'll worry you to death, right?
You're on holiday.
Yeah. So if we look at verse 2, what did verse 2 say? So that
Ways
you're
be known,
giving us the answer, right?
yeah.
So that your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. What is he not asking for when you look at that? He's not asking to bless me so that I can be comfortable. Right? It's a missionary song. He's not asking, bless me that I don't have to work so hard to make a living. There's nothing in here personal. How difficult is that to do? When you're petitioning God for, in this way, to avoid making it personal.
Through growth, I think that you begin to mature in that fact, to realize that it's not about you, that it's truly about God, and that you are asking God to have His way in other people's lives, because He knows more about what that person needs than you do.
Yeah,
Because we basically look at the superficial side of life,
yeah.
and what we see is not necessarily what that person truly needs. So we have to be asking for God's will to be done.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. And he's not saying, bless me so others will envy me for what I got.
Amen.
And he's depersonalizing it, right? He's saying, bless me so that I might show your power, your love, and your majesty to all the earth. That's a great place to be in.
Amen.
Bless me so that I can show your power your love, your majesty to all the earth. I'm out of the middle. I'm out of that completely. All I am is an instrument in the hand of God. And that's what we all are, right? At this stage in our lives, with the commitments that we've made to God.
You know, I have to share this story.
Okay.
I shared with you last week about the lady in the store who was lifting
Mhm.
the boxes. She had breast cancer, but she wouldn't tell the boss that she really couldn't do that it was really hurting her. So I went to the boss and we got all that straightened out. They put her back, you know, to receive the people as they come in. Well, the boss left, and now she's by herself again with the story. So I went in to talk to her the other day as I went by, and she says, we have a new boss. And I said, well, have you shared with him what's going on so he doesn't put you back? She said, no, I haven't. She said, where are you? Okay, where's the boss? So I go ask the gentleman, where's the boss? Is in the back. He came out, and I looked at him, and I said, I know you. He said, yes, you do. Said, I worked here 8 years ago, in the storage room, and I would come out and put things on the shelf. And he said, yes, I'm from Robinson High School, and I live right up the street with my family.
Wow.
I said, do you know Carmen? He said, I do. He said, Carmen was here when I got here. And when I came to be the stock boy and do whatever, she welcomed me with open arms. I said, okay.
Stage is set.
We got the common ground.
So in the story, he said, bless you for telling me that. He said, I already know that I need to take care of her, and I will.
Thank you, Lord.
So I
Oh,
said,
that's
thank you,
wonderful.
God, here we go.
Yeah.
But he's back as the manager of the store. It's amazing.
Wow, what a,
It's amazing.
that's a great continuation of your story.
Yes,
That's
yes,
great.
yes.
Wonderful. So he's saying, bless me so that I can be a reflection. That's part of the light we're showing to the world, right? About the graciousness of God in our lives. What does it mean for us as believers to have the face of God shine upon us? What is that? What is that statement saying from us, from our perspective?
Well, there's room for Satan if you have that kind of blessing.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. You know, the face is pretty revealing, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it tells a lot. You know, Grandma, I used to wonder when she talked about it. Well, what you thinking? You know.
Grandma knew a lot.
Yeah, the face reveals it.
Face revealed it.
You know, if you're fed up with somebody, the face is gonna show it. If you're on, huh? Go ahead,
When
brother.
his face shine upon you, it also helped to encourage a whole lot of others who may be down and out, and they look at you and say, well, why is it and how is it you are the way you are? And they see God through you.
And you can also look at it as if God's face is shining upon you, you can rest assured that you're covered for whatever the situation is.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that same vein, what we have to also continue to remember is, yes, God will provide goodness, but it's not goodness always where you see God's face.
Mhm.
It could be in badness, because God's always there with you. So you have to keep that in mind, that He's there with the good and the bad.
So in other words, what you're saying is that the smiling face of God is always on us.
Yes, yeah. So even now in the 21st century, in America, His face is still shining on us. That's all I have to say with that.
Yeah, well, there's certain challenges.
We're gonna stick by it, right?
And that's what they see when they look at your face in the midst of great difficulty and you're calm and collected.
And I think a lot of times it goes beyond just, you seeing a person's physical face, it's that term countenance.
Countenance.
I mean, God's countenance be upon you.
Yeah.
And it's that whole attitude of aura that a lot of Christians have, just knowing that, hey, everything's gonna be all right, don't get stressed out, God's got it.
Right,
So and I think that's God's countenance.
Mhm.
You pray that, people have that countenance and don't get stressed out and too worked out about things.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's one. And others can see that, can't
Yeah.
they? I mean, I can remember being in a workplace and, stuff be flying all around and once I gotten committed to my relationship with the Lord, it bothered me. I felt that he would have it under control. I just deal with one step at a time. And the difficulties and the challenges that come along with all that, it'll get taken care of.
Amen.
Just stay focused on, in this case, the face of God shining upon us. Verses 3 through 5 deals with the next step in this process. Because once we share the light with the world, that the purpose of that is to get the world to praising God, right? So somebody read verses 3 through 5, because it says that out of that will come the joy that the world needs.
May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you. May the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you rule the peoples with equity and guide the nations of the earth. May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you. Keep going and stay.
Through 5.
Okay. May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you.
Yeah. So it's really saying to us that, and this is the center of the song, is that praising ultimately brings you joy.
Amen.
And your comment earlier about the time in which we live in, the world definitely needs a good dose of joy. And it's through our ability to be missionaries and share that. And you can be a missionary just in your neighborhood.
Right here.
Right. In your friendship group. It's good to be able to go around the world and shed light. But there's some pretty dark places along your street.
Right across the table from you, actually. At home.
Yeah.
Or here.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
Some dark places.
What is that all about?
I'm glad I'm not across from him.
Dark places.
I think you are.
Yeah, I am.
The references at home, Howard.
Right.
You don't have to go that far.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's some dark places at home.
And that's good to know for us. That's good for us to know. Because it ought to do, it's kind of like me, but guys I'm meeting with next week, which by the way, we're gonna not meet next week. These are fellows that I've known since military days, and we meet once a year, and 30-something years we've been friends, and many of them are children of God, but there's some that haven't got it yet.
Yeah.
And I use them as a barometer to stay on point, because a couple of them I know, first thing they're gonna do is say, "Oh, you call yourself a preacher?" And so that's what's critical about knowing that that the light we share is important, even with the person walking beside us. If you talk across the table from us, because we should never be found in the foxhole. mentally. We should never be found in the foxhole. We're supposed to be on the battlefield. And prepared to say what thus saith the Lord. And in this case, we're talking about the fact that there's great joy for you coming out of this praise. There's a story about a missionary named Robert Reed whose life was really changed in his adolescent years by cerebral palsy. And he ended up where his hands were twisted, his feet were useless. He couldn't bathe or feed himself. He couldn't brush his teeth, comb his hair, and he had to use Velcro to keep all of his clothes, buttoned up or closed. Not much joy, you would think, from a life of that sort. He's now in his mid-60s. Not much joy could be found in that kind of struggle, looking at it on the surface. ... but God. That's the praise part that got him through this. God. This guy graduated from high school, earned a degree in Latin, taught at a junior college, went overseas on 5 mission trips. You think he was a light? 5 mission trips. He became a missionary in Portugal and enjoyed the experience so much that a few years later, he moved to Portugal alone. Took up residence in a hotel. Somehow made friends with a restaurant owner near the hotel who fed him every day. After the rush hour, he'd go to the restaurant and the guy would stand at the table and feed him. He did that for 7 years. Lord blessed him with a wife that he found because he'd go to the park every day and hand out literature about God and praising the Lord. And out of that experience, he encountered a young lady, and they got married, and been married 20-something years. And at the end of his presentation, he speaks all over the country. At the end of his presentations now, he tells folks, don't feel uncomfortable for me. He says, I have everything I need for joy.
Amen.
And he gives it all the credit to the fact that he learned and has never forgotten how to praise the Lord.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
So that there's a great reward for us in what we do. We can, in terms of praising God, to share light with the world. I mean, sometimes it may look like we're wasting our efforts. In some cases, it may be that the more we attempt to demonstrate that light, the darker whatever it is that we're confronting, the darker it becomes. But we all know that darkness can't survive with a constant exposure to light. It doesn't work. It can run into a closet because the door is closed. But sooner or later, you open every element that's capturing and holding on to that darkness. And it'll change. It'll change. And not frustrate yourself by putting a calendar date out there. I know if I do this for 6 months, this this is gonna happen. That ain't the way it works, is it?
No.
I mean, you look at, and we talked about it last week, right? That the children of Israel prayed for 400 years before the light of God's face showed up. But they never stopped. 400 years when they were in Egypt. So, you know, if we are confronted with a condition on the missionary field, and we're missionaries no matter where we are, our objective ought to be to just shed the light
Amen.
and not look for the transformation. And as Jim pointed out, and in the process, enjoy the fact that we've been transformed ourselves.
Amen.
Because the patience that we didn't have at the beginning of the process, God is blessing us and causing us to become more and more patient. Isn't that how we miss our blessing? By being impatient. I know I've missed a few. And you know, as long as we're human, we're probably gonna miss some more. But that's where our joy is. And so, the point that was made in that illustration was that his shirts may have been made of Velcro in order to hold them together, but his life was made of joy, which held it together.
Amen.
Verses 6 through 7, which wraps it up for us, talks about the fact that not only does the world need light, and the world needs joy, but the world also needs life, L-I-F-E. And as a part of that life, in our book, on page 216, you see that the study section talks about the fact that the Lord sends the harvest. Somebody read verses 6 through 7.
The land yields its harvest. God, our God, blesses us. May God bless us still, so that all the ends of the earth will fear him.
Okay? So, that passage shifts to the season of harvest. And that kind of explains why all the work up front needs to be done, right? Because the season of harvest, I mean, that's what we're working toward. You know, when I'm harvested, I want to hear, well done,
Amen.
right? Because we're all going to be harvested one day. And what this passage is shooting for, on behalf of God, is a harvest of souls. When we're taking light and the ability to teach them how to praise God, guiding them and directing them toward becoming a harvest of souls for the kingdom. I mean, we do believe that whenever the gospel is shared with someone, that a seed is planted. Right?
Amen.
I mean, even tells us, you know, you children whose thought process is not solid at the beginning, but if you raise them up right, that seed remains, right? They never forget it. How important then, having said that, is the harvest?
It is
How important?
attainment of the goal. It's
Most important.
very important.
Yeah. And it's been part of our lives, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go to school just to go to school. Go to college or some advanced studies, you don't do that just for the sake of doing it. You're looking for a harvest, right?
To reduce.
And what are we obligated to try to do in order to help enhance the harvest, or to ensure that the harvest is as great as it can be?
Continuously work the field,
Continue to work the field.
continuously work the field. Continuously spread the word.
Yeah. And I have some DNA that really speaks to that, because I come from a long line of field hands. You know, we had nothing to do with working in the house. So getting the hands and getting yourself into the crop. I mean, we can see ourselves that way, right? As we're shedding this light, we're getting involved in the earth, toiling it, tossing it, turning it.
You know,
We are the harvest.
you know, I think.
We are the harvest.
Yeah, we are. One of the things that
And the workers.
that I have to be aware of is the fact of looking at who do I associate with,
Mhm.
and I associate with other Christians. That's good, but that's not literally sharing God with those who don't know Him.
Mhm.
So it means that I've got to make the effort, whether it's when I'm in extracurricular activities or wherever I am, that I'm sharing God. Because otherwise, you get stuck in your typical friendships and so forth, and we're all the same. We aren't building up the kingdom anymore. We may be reinforcing the kingdom,
Right.
but not building the kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. So as part of our lives and the harvesting that has occurred in our lives, where we've received joy of our praising God and the relationship we have with Him, is a demonstration to others about what they're missing, right? It's the harvest provides the richness, the food, the life, which is what this study is about, right? That the world needs life. It's the life. There's a psychologist, his name is Charles Allen. And he used as an illustration about harvesting the fact that at the end of World War II, they gathered a group of orphans that they had brought in, put them in nice, comfortable places, fed them, treated them in a way that they hadn't been treated in many years. And he said that they noticed that every night the kids couldn't sleep. Because of their experiences in the world, they weren't sure about tomorrow. So they couldn't sleep. And how they fixed it was they gave them an assurance about the harvest. They gave each one of them a piece of bread at night. Don't eat it. Just hold on to it. And he said they slept through the night. Slept so hard you couldn't even wake them up. Because they knew that when they wake up tomorrow morning, they at least had something to eat. That's what we're talking about here, is the world needs that kind of life. They need to see that that kind of life is available for them, that in spite of all that's going on around us now, there's still joy in the morning. And that's what they're searching for, right? So I ask you, what has God given us to hold on to sleep through the night? Jesus, right?
Amen.
Isn't that our bread?
That's our bread with the Holy Spirit and dwell, right?
Yeah,
He is the bread.
yeah. Jesus. Jesus said in John 6:35, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. Whoever believes in me will never thirst. He's the bread. And he said that after feeding 5,000 people. And some folks said maybe 10,000. So make sure that you're placing your life in the hands of Jesus. I mean, that's the light and the message we have for the world, right? And that's what 67 is telling us. Share with the world that they need to make sure that you're placing your life in the hands of Jesus. And in closing, I say that once the world sees that our lives are in the hand of Christ, I think it'll drive them to begin to understand what it means to fear the Lord. Because fearing the Lord, knowing that this reward is available for you in praising God for your life, will cause you to think, oh man, I better get on board. I'm going to miss that. And that's the kind of fear of the Lord that we're particularly speaking to, is the concern that the lost may have about not being able to receive and feel the joy that we share with them as they look and inspect our individual lives. Can the church say amen?
Amen.
Did I miss anything?
Although you mentioned
Yes, sir.
praise, one of the most uncomfortable religious experiences I've ever had in life was to go to the funeral of a woman who lived a very praiseworthy life in which there was no praise. And she was a relative who, right after slavery, the Quakers started many schools down in Alabama and Georgia. And so they brought with them the Quaker tradition of very solemn, reverent services. No one speaks above a whisper. Everything is very quiet. In fact, raise your voice over 20 decibels, everybody looks at you. And this particular relative of mine, when you read her bio, when you just looked at what she accomplished in life, with little pot-bellied Alabama schools and all the kids she took in off of plantations, and your heart just soared when you read what she'd accomplished in life. She was if ever there was a praiseworthy saint, this particular lady was. And then we all traveled down and went to her funeral service, which was wrapped in solemnity. And just almost wanted to bust out, but you had to respect the local tradition, because you were burying a praiseworthy saint, but there was no praise.
Wow.
Because, that just was the tradition. And I remember being, my wife kept nudging me, because some of us were very uncomfortable. Not that we wanted to shout or dishonor the tone of the particular service, because that was you had to give some reverence to whatever people wanted to do. We were guests. Okay, so you went in home, you do as Romans do.
Right.
But it was a difficult funeral for me, for it seemed to be the lack of recognition of the accomplishment, the praiseworthy accomplishments of the person who was laying in the casket. In my view, merited some praise.
What do you think was going on in Glory?
True. That's the thing. What little you do down here really doesn't matter. So, just get over it. But, I wish I'd been wise enough to think that.
Right. But that's, wow, that's, you hate to see that. Indeed. All right, all minds clear?
Oh, my.
All right, praise the Lord.
Who's first back?